welcome to Solutions with Courtney Anderson. I am your host, Courtney Anderson. As always, you can join me at CourtneyAnderson.com for more information. So, welcome to the show today. We have one of our Myth Warriors series shows. And of course, in our Myth Warriors series, we are putting on our battle gear and we are getting out there in life to find out what's a myth and what could potentially be reality. So in this specific episode, our topic is professional success is based on who you know, not what you know. Professional success is based on who you know, not what you know. And this, of course, is an idea that is worldwide in most societies. That you who gets ahead? Well, it's who you know. You know the right people. And certainly we can look in the history of our human shared experience, and especially societies that were based on, divine rights and based on, monarchs. The idea was that people are born special. You're born, you're royalty. So if you're born into that, then it's not like you've done anything. You just are that thing. You were born, now you'll be king later. You were born, now you'll be a queen. Great. It's not like you earned it. It had nothing to do with what you know. You didn't get anywhere or become, leader of a nation by what you know. Who cares what you know? Nobody even asked you. It's all about who. Not even really who you knew, but who you are, who you were born to. By being born, that was it. You are anointed. You are created special. So this whole idea of, does the person from humble beginnings have any opportunity to ascend to the highest strata of society, whether in any time period in human history that we have been able to access through records? It's interesting because so much of my perspective, of course, is based on my life experience, being alive in this, current time period, what I've experienced, what I perceive to be accurate information. But when you expand this idea out and you start to think about it, is it a myth or is it reality? That professional success is based on who you know, not what you know. I think historically the answer would have to be that professional success is based on who you know. So part of it would be that historically, if you're born into, quote, the right group, whether it's, the right family, the right tribe, the right, whatever. If you're born into that, and especially when you have societies built on, nobility and things like that where it's inherited, you are that. You didn't earn, that land. You didn't earn that business. You just were born, and it's yours. And no matter what you do, maybe some family member will give you a little less, authority, but you'll never be not this thing. And, in the totality of our experience, as we understand it at this point, as humans, that's been the majority of our society. Selection, right? So whether it was, royalty, whether it was just an elite and powerful group, oligarchs, it doesn't even matter what the system was, or maybe it was a, religious, tribal, or ethnic. It doesn't matter. You were in that group, you were born in that group, boom, you're powerful. Woo! There you go. Success for you. You weren't born in that group, good luck. And that's why I think when we read so much of our, shared human history, that narrative, right? There's that little, that David and Goliath, right? There's that little non-powerful, outcast. And they're going to just pull themselves up by their bootstraps. And we see it in just all these different societies. So I mean, I think if we're looking at it from, again, sort of a wider lens of human history, I think the answer has to be that this is not a myth. I think that in many parts of the world today that I've had the privilege and honor to work in and visit and spend some time in, it is who you know. It doesn't matter how hard you work. It doesn't matter what your intentions are. It doesn't matter if you try to make good choices. If you're born not in the right group, again, whether it's religious or ethnic or tribal or societal, or even today, many parts of the world, you still have nobility, and you're born into that. And if you're born into the right group, great. For the people who aren't born into the right group, then you have this whole idea, right, of sort of the court. And you see this again in so many societies. And I've shared in previous programs. I'm a history buff. I love history. But that's what you see. What you'll see is, so there's the group that's born into they just, by nature of the lottery of life in one perspective, or that they were, predestined and it was divine. I don't know. But they were born and they were powerful. And then so around them, that's a little minuscule group. But around them, right, is a sort of constellation of people who spend everything in their waking hours try to maneuver to get closer to those in power. So you see this in again, every geographic region of our world history, right? You read about, the idea, of the court, right? So there's the very tiny few that were born into it, yay! And then you have all of the massive apparatus built around this power structure, people trying to just get closer, right? So, cajoling, entertaining, the court jester, whatever you need to do to get closer to power, people, that's what it is. And so many of our modern, movies and media is still consumed with all of this, because that's, I think, sort of, I don't know if it's our nature as humans. I don't know, but that tends to have been our default choice, and it makes everything much simpler, right? Because there's not a lot of decisions that need to be made. So who's going to be powerful? Well, these people are. And if you're born into this group, you're powerful. And if you're not, then you're not. And many of these societies also have a group that's the opposite, right? I don't care who you are. If you're born in this group, you're literally untouchable. There's no hope for you. You're the lowest of the low. And there's rankings, right? There's strata in all these societies. So there's the tippy top of those who are just born into complete privilege and power and access. And then there's a ranking in these societies of who's less horrible, I guess. And then in every one of these societies, there's something on the bottom, I guess, of the power, prestige, aspirational group, who's the sort of the worst. That's the group you wouldn't want to be. That's the most undesirable group, and it's the hardest for that group to get anything. And so you have this, and it's based on all different types of things. Again, religion, tribal, or national origin, historical issues, skin color, size. It's amazing. Some parts of the world, the larger the person is, the more powerful and desirable they are. If you're a small frame person, you're horrible. In other parts of the world, it's the opposite. Small frame people, powerful, wonderful. Larger frame, you're horrible. In some parts of the world, the fair skin, powerful, and the richer, deeper skin tone, horrible. In other parts of the world, it's opposite, where people want to be more rich tone. They actually will go and tan themselves to become tanner. They want that richer look that makes you look rich, more powerful. You don't want to look too fair. Some parts of the world, it's based on everything from your neck size to your earlobes. It's just all kind of stuff. That's the love. I have to say, I was having a conversation with somebody the other day about undergraduate study and sort of a broad liberal arts, where you just take a variety of classes for a period of time. And I was making the argument that the benefit of that is, maybe I'm not going to be an astronomer, maybe I'm not going to be an anthropologist, but that may be the only time in my life I get to learn about that field, at some level. And if you skip that, then you just have so little information. And I'm thinking back specifically to anthropology classes. I never thought I was going to be an anthropologist necessarily, but I remember today, from 20 years ago, oh my goodness, which I was just barely a child, this great anthropology professor who had been his life's passion, and it was so interesting. And basically, learning about different cultures and studying people, and it does give you, I'm not going to be able to be Margaret Mead, but it gives you this idea of how, it gives you perspective. And so, when we do a program like this, I can reach back and realize, oh, okay, I don't want to just think about this from my perspective, based in, the 2014 time period in a certain part of the world, and, based on who I am. I have one answer for that, which is what I'm, going to put forward the rest of the program. But it's big. It's a bigger question, and depending on where I was, born, where I'm living, what I do, my answer is going to be different. And in many parts of the world today, it's tribal, not necessarily by tribe, but it's based on these affiliations. Again, it's it's size, it's surname, it's relative, it's clan, it's religion, it's all this kind of stuff. And you don't have any control. You're born into the group, then you have entree automatically. You haven't done anything. You're just born. Look at you. Awesome. And that affects people in one way. And then, like I said, that's a tiny percentage. It's always a tiny percentage. It has to be, just by the functioning of a society. And then you have the whole thing that's exciting. I know in a lot of the books and the movies sometimes I'll watch, it's about people trying to do everything they can, like a big chess game, to get closer, to curry favor with those in power, because that's the only way you get ahead. Doesn't matter. You could have the best. You could be somebody who's a carpenter, be the best carpenter ever. Nobody cares. You don't have the power. And in those societies, excellence, is not, it's sort of, I guess, a nice thing, but it's not really helpful, because it's all about power, and power is held by a tiny group, and the only way you get power is to have them dole out little pieces of it. So whatever you need to do, however many you need to manipulate your way. In fact, I just saw another documentary the other day about a large religious group that's very powerful, and they've had some changes in their leadership, and they were in this documentary showing sort of the behind the scenes power struggles in this sort of a global powerful religion, and it's the same thing, right? Everybody's sort of moving as swiftly and deftly and manipulatively as they can to get closer to those in the throne. It's amazing. So I guess the general answer would be, this is not a myth. Where do you live in the world? What's your experience like? What's the reality of what you can get done? In fact, I was dealing with the discussion about businesses and different parts of the world. It happened to be some companies in Africa, and not in South Africa, where I've done some work, and so I have some personal knowledge, but in a country in northern Africa. And it was interesting, because it was they were sharing with me that literally when you turn in like your a job application information, or you turn in a job review, you have to list your spouse, your parents, their names, their occupation, because what they're trying to do is get a total feel. It's larger modern times, but they want to know, who are you? Who are your people? Who are what is your lineage? Now, in many parts of the world, that's illegal. You're not allowed to do that. You can't even ask that in many parts of the world. Many countries forbid you, right? Because you're not supposed to be making decisions based on that. But this was just a discussion I had, in the last 48 hours. So the reality is, if you live in a place where power structures and decisions and access to university, to entrepreneurship, to real estate, to travel, if it's all controlled by the elite powerful few, and everybody knows that, and there's no pretend that you're going to get anywhere with just going out and studying or working hard in that culture, then you have to face that reality. That's what the whole series is about. We're myth warriors. So you got to make an assessment of your current situation. And if you're in a situation where the pragmatic, honest approach is, look, I have to make connections. I can't even get travel papers or a visa or whatever I need to potentially even go to, a university that I dream of, or to travel or do anything. I've got to curry favor with the elite. Then you need to do that. I mean, I can't sit here and tell you, ethically, I would argue, we have whole programs and discussions about these things. Ethically, my personal, certainly biased life experiences, that those things are not the most equitable systems. But if that's the system, that's the system. Certainly, it could be argued in every part of the world. I'm in the States right now, that this is the same situation. It might not be called, a tribe, but very tiny percentage of people have marshaled a massive amount of economic resources. And it's disproportionate to the numbers of the society. And how is that different from a feudal system? How is it different from people being a serf to the modern times, where you have this little teeny tiny percentage who own a disproportionate amount of resources in a society? And then you have all these people who, in the United States, are literally, they debate, can they get $7 an hour or $10 an hour, how much of a difference does that make? I mean, of course it makes a difference if you're in that situation, but from the perspective of the powerful and the elite and the amounts, of resources totally available in society, is that even fair? But that's what somebody has a discussion, but that's how it's set up. So I don't know if that's a modern serf or, if there's been any change, we just changed the labels. So maybe somebody's not a duke or a duchess, but they just have a different title. I mean, does it really matter? I don't know. These are all fascinating questions, and they're part of the reason why there aren't easy answers in life. It depends on where you are and what your situation is. So if you're, I was saying, in a part of the world where the reality is you do need to know people, then you need to be aware of that. And I can't sit here and tell you to go out and, pull yourself up by your bootstraps and focus on being excellent if it's not even feasible. And I also, now that I'm reflecting, which is one of the exciting things about doing these types of programs, is that discovery for hopefully you and I. I don't know if I can tell someone in many parts of the West, many parts of this country in the States, that it's entirely going to be just up to them to be awesome or excellent. This is so interesting. In the United States, where I'm based now, up until the last couple of decades, the answer for my relatives, my lineage, is it who you know or what you know, would have been it's who you know, because the nation had, again, this power structure, very clear rules on who was the powerful group and who was the undesirable group. And if you were born into the undesirable group, no matter how hard you worked or what you did, you're never going to raise any higher than a certain level, because there were literally, signs and businesses, that wouldn't serve you no matter what you did. So you could have gone to university and worked really hard and been an excellent professional, and they still wouldn't even let you into their restaurant or to their building. They would have a sign that you couldn't come in there no matter what you accomplished. There's a situation. I live in Las Vegas, and it's a huge entertainment destination. And there's a history even in this town where a few decades ago, when the U.S. had these more formal practices and laws where the undesirable group couldn't, go in places no matter who you were, they would have entertainers come to Las Vegas who happen to be the undesirable group, which is based on largely skin color in the United States. I would say it's ethnicity, but if you look like you were one group based on skin color, then you could go in and nobody would ask you questions. If you look like you were not the right group, and this was based visually, and it was based almost entirely on your richness of your skin color. So they had people here in Las Vegas several decades ago who are internationally known stars, movie stars and performers all over the world. People knew these people were, right? Men and women. Sammy Davis, Jr., Dorothy Dandridge, people who were like literally big deals, and they'd come and they'd play the entertainment shows here in town. But at the time, no matter, even if they're a big huge star, they can't stay in the same. They could go to a building and be allowed to go in there and perform and sing and dance and do their performing show, but they couldn't stay in that hotel even though they just worked there, because they weren't allowed to, because the rules were that if you're that skin color and you're in that group, then I don't care who you are. Even if you're famous and people come pay money at the same building to hear you sing, you still aren't good enough to be allowed to stay here. And there's a story where Dorothy Dandridge was a movie star and singer and had worked in one of these facilities at one of these big hotels, and apparently was not pleased with the system. And so, these are big resort hotels. I mean, now they're really big, but back then they were still, at the time, fancy. This is a couple decades ago. So she does her big show, and then I guess she just felt like, what, I'm going to go, and she went down to the pool, huge elaborate swimming pools. These places have very lovely, because that's where you go there on holiday. And apparently the legend, the story, which is to the best of my understanding somewhat accurate, is she, put herself in the pool. Like, she walked on in that pool. And by putting herself in the pool, there was a big negative consequence. People got very upset. And then the reality is that people actually drained the swimming pool, right? So you have this huge, massive swimming pool, but because this person who's an undesirable, even though they were good enough to be able to come work there, people would pay ticket money to come see them sing or perform or dance or whatever. But that's a society, that's an undesirable. So then she goes to she puts her foot or her body or whatever, how much of she could in the swimming pool, and people were so horrified and disgusted that they drained the whole pool, because the idea was, I guess, no one else could get in that water. It was ruined. She put herself, any part of herself in there. I mean, you know, it may not sound like a big deal, but that's a powerful emotional, psychological message. And for me to have made an argument during that time period, if that was, you know, my contemporary life, to say, well, we have to be the best we can be. Well, sure, we are going to be the best, but even when we're the best, we still can't get anything. Like, we can't, you know, be allowed to go out to eat or sit down or walk into a building or, you know, I mean, so in that type of situation, yeah, there's only, the reality is that it's who you know, but it's who you are. Because even in that situation, you could, you know, go to those who are powerful and try to curry favor, which many people did. You still were limited. So I'm not even really sure that it would be who you know to a certain extent, but it would be a question of, should we change the system? But I'm just saying that I'm not blind to the fact that this is a human issue, that it's everywhere in the world. And even today, like I said, there are millions of people in this country and other countries who have, you know, no resources, no access to resources, and from the outside, you would say, well, why don't you just apply to the best, you know, universities? And if you do that, then that'll open up all this opportunity, and then you'll be able to move forward. And that's accurate and true in a sense, but many of the people are so isolated from understanding what's happening in these other parts of society, they don't even know. You know, they don't even know they could do that. And even if they'd heard of it, they don't even know how you do it, because they don't know anyone, and they don't have a clue of where you start. So there's a lot that's done in a society to maintain power structures, obviously. Professional success is based, I would argue it's based on who you are. So if you're born into a powerful, quote, good group, you know, you get a benefit. You get a privilege, they call it. If you're born into a not powerful group, there are going to be some challenges. And depending on where you are in the world, you may have no options, honestly. You may have some slim options. Or you may be at a time we've had in the last recent human history, you know, different societies. This is literally all over the world. So from the U.S. through, you know, Asia and the Middle East, Africa, Europe, this idea comes up where people say, well, it's not, I want opportunity, right? I want to be able to get out there and make my decisions in life based on what I know. So, you know, what I study, what my skills are, and if I work hard, I should be able to have the opportunity to achieve economic, you know, goals and live in the nicest neighborhoods and have the best opportunities for my children and things of that nature. And so there's, you know, all kinds of protests and political action, and so that's all in flux right now. But if you have some opportunity, so if you live in a society and you have some opportunity to be judged as an independent person, meaning that you don't have to go and the best that you can dream of is to be dependent on some powerful person. If there's some chance in your society where you are right now in the world for you yourself to be the person that has power, not the highest level of power. I mean, it's you know, almost rarely it can happen, but it's, you know, incredibly rare for somebody that's so far removed from power structures to be able to go to, like, literally the highest group. But in many parts of the world, there have been little openings where through political, governmental, cultural, societal rules, options, change, people do get a chance. So in other words, me, who I am as a woman, as a black woman, I wouldn't have been able, if I'd been my grandmothers, who are brilliant, I must say, both of them brilliant, went, you know, college educated, professional, gorgeous, interesting, really interesting people. Very different personalities, both of them. And they actually knew each other. You know, it's weird. They sort of were socially knew each other because they're similar social class, and they were both in this little part of the town and shared of the world and little towns in a part of western Texas. And then weirdly, their children sort of met, and then, you know, later, decades later, you know, created their own family. It's weird, but they I wouldn't have been able to sit here and say, if I were their contemporary, hey, it's going to be, what we know, because they knew it. They were brilliant. They were college educated at a time when very few people were. Their parents were both college educated. So, they had gone, they were doing everything they could in terms of education, professionalism, knowledge, skill, all that kind of good stuff. But the society was just not going to, it's not going to have it. I mean, there was a lot of gender issues. Most women didn't become, and still many, if not most parts of the world, women don't become powerful on their own. But the idea is that the woman, sort of like the old idea where I mentioned, you talk about the idea of the court, and so that people spend all their time, trying to maneuver and manipulate how to get closer to the powerful people in the court, right? Whether it's through, I'll be your number one servant, or the person that is your number one confidant, or I'll be your entertainer or your jester or whatever. It's the same thing historically with women. The idea is that the woman's not going to go out to be powerful because society won't let that happen. And I know in the United States, in fact, the contemporary my grandmother's time, women couldn't own property in a lot of instances in their own name. You couldn't have your own credit card or bank account. The idea was that the only way that the woman would get power would be through a man, because she can't go do those things. She herself can't, ascend to that profession or that job or have those opportunities. So what she could do, and her only option, was she had to find the most powerful man if she wanted to, travel internationally or have that kind of business or live that kind of lifestyle. She couldn't go do it. They wouldn't let her do it. Who's they? The society. I mean, you weren't admitted to those programs. You couldn't even apply to them. Nobody hires women in these jobs. So it's not even a possibility. So what women did who had goals and ambitions and dreams, right, is they went out and they found powerful men, and that's what they did. And then through marriage and or personal relationships, you use that to get kind of what your dreams were. But you couldn't do it yourself because it was unheard of, and it was impossible. Not just was it unheard of, you couldn't do it, right? So all of these things are real. And I think when I started off to look at this program, I thought, oh, well, this is so simple. I'm going to say that it's always going to be what you know, right? Because that's sort of, that's the whole mantra of, what I do. It's all about being excellent. It's all about surpassing our goals. It's all about practicing a joyful art of business. It's all about being independent, and all this kind of good stuff. Well, yeah, in a very tiny sliver of time, in a very tiny sliver of opportunity, that will work. If you have the opportunity where you don't have to use dependence on another person, okay, whether it's, through, gender or, ethnic or tribe or power or the elite or whatever, if you don't have to do that, then don't, because it's so much more, I believe, psychologically exciting, and it gives you so much more, control and option if you can do it yourself, do it as you. But I can't sit here and say, oh yeah, well, everybody can do that. Well, no, they can't. And the frustration of people, whether it was historically or people, in my family that I've, talked to and knew well when they were alive, or people today that I've talked to and traveled, and, if the reality is it can't be done, then it can't be done. People do try to do everything in their power to change things so that there's opportunity, and things, we'll see how it plays out in the future. I have no idea. But I know in my life experience, I'm the first generation of my family. I got to, the laws and the culture of change. I got to go to schools with all different types of people. I wasn't forced to go to the schools for only the undesirables, according to the society, but that my parents did. Everybody, I'm the first generation. So this stuff is new. And sometimes when people, talk to me and they're like, oh, you're so positive. You're so positive. Yeah, part of the reason is I'm trying really hard to meet my goals and surpass them, so that's true. But here's the other thing. I am aware at all times, or most times, sometimes I'll be a little selfish or self-indulgent, but I am aware that I am the first generation, not, to have this shot, to have a shot at these jobs and to be like an independent person and be my own path, without having, gender and ethnic and all these other issues that were literal, absolute barriers to a chance. And I know that, the frustration that other people have had and the things they couldn't do. I do get to, in a way, I'm getting emotional. In a way, this is my chance. And it's not just sort of for me, but it's for all the people who didn't get the chance. And it's for all the people in the future. And I'm grateful for that. So yeah, I'm going to keep going because I don't know if these opportunities will last. I don't know how long they'll be open. But to be able to be free and call your own shots and make your decisions, and it is based on what I know, is wonderful. As I close this, if you are in a position where you have a chance, there's a society, there's a culture, there's an opening for you to just go out there as yourself, as you are, and be excellent and show that, then do it. Because getting by on what you know is completely powerful, and it's safe, and it takes away someone else abusing or exploiting you because you don't have any other option. So if you have it, go for it. Then so many of these other programs, get as much education, as many skills as you can. Work on your health, your nutrition, and then be as motivated and ambitious as you want to be. Dream as big as you can, but act. And remember that for just like I say, I'm the first, in my family for many opportunities. So are you. I mean, depending on who you are and where you are in the world. This unless you're somebody who's listening and thinking, I'm princess of some country and all my family for 800 years has been, well, that's different. But how many people in the world are there like that? That's a little tiny group. All the rest of us, it's a shot. Take it. And by take it, I mean you don't need to go be dependent on other people. You don't have to go curry favor. If you just treat yourself well and are excellent, you can build your own independent life. And I am going to go to my grave believing that is just the sweetest thing of a human experience, right? Freedom. So take it and go. But on the other hand, be grateful and aware that no matter who you are and where you are in the world, you got a story that somebody's paid a horrible price for you to have a chance. And sometimes when I talk to people and they're so unmotivated and they're just sort of whiny, I think, are you unaware in the course of human history how lucky it is for whoever you are to have a chance and a shot? Take it. So as we close, my argument would be modern times, if you're in a situation where there's an opportunity, it's not who you know. It is what you know. It's not who you are, your gender, your color, your size, your ethnicity, your religion. I don't care. But if you're in a part of the world where you don't have that opportunity, be aware of it and do everything in your power to get to a place where you can. And then when you get that chance and the door opens, run through it. Don't stop. And that's why when you hear immigrant stories all over the world, right? It's like an immigrant community, they do so much. Well, yeah, because as soon as somebody got somewhere and had a shot where it wasn't based on who they knew, but they could get out there themselves and do it, they're going to do it. And they're going to work, and it looks like, quote, incredibly hard, but from their perspective, it's like, are you serious? This is my chance. And I never had this, and I'm going to just do it. So you can do that for yourself. You can have that mindset. I thank you so much for joining me. I'm going to argue, depending on where you are in the world, if you're in a similar situation as I am, or you have some opportunity, take it. It's a myth. Success should be based on what you know. But you need to be aware that this is a very relatively new opportunity, and you need to, I think, be grateful and appreciative and do everything you can in your power to define then, who are you? What do you know? Be excellent. Thank you for joining me. As always, you can come to CourtneyAnderson.com for more information. Thanks.